and flows of angel hair, and ice cream castles in the air, and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun, and they rain and they snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions that I recall. I really don't know clouds. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way you feel as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave 'em laughing when you go, and if you care, don't let them know. No, don't give yourself away. Oh, I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's lousy illusions that I recall. I really don't know love. Really don't know love at all. I don't know love at all.
Tears and fears, feeling proud
To say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way. But now old friends are acting strange, and they shake their heads, and they tell me that I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day.
We gather together today as a dear family and friends.
They can't hear you.
It's on.
It's okay now. We gather together today as a dear family and friends for Renee Muriel Kurland. As we mourn her loss and also celebrate the full, rich life she led. Death has taken our beloved Renee. Friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For her love that united us in life and which death cannot sever. For her companionship which we shared along life's path and which still continues the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and her mind which brought us joy and happiness and now become a precious heritage of the Spirit. For all these and more, God, we give you our praise. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. God has given and God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people, we're well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. Yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave, and there is strength in faith. With Job we say, Adonai natan, God you have given. You gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten. For all was good and enduring in her life. We offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Proverbs 31. Eshet chayo mi yimsa rachok mipni mikra. A woman of valor who can find, she's more precious than fine pearls. Her husband trusts in her and so he lacks nothing. She does him good, never harm, all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need, extends her hands to the poor. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. They sing her praises. Many daughters done valiantly, but you excel them all. A poem by Kathy Zink. Take time to talk, for you may ask of all things unknown to you. Take time to laugh, for smiles relinquish sorrow and spread happiness. Take time to think, for the realm of knowledge is never ending. Take time to see, for there is beauty in every part of the world around you. Take time to feel, for the emotions of your heart often control the reasoning of your mind. Take time to live, for each day is filled with new opportunities that will be gone tomorrow. Take time to dream, for survival is forever challenging the powers of your imagination. Take time to love, for the sharing of all these things is the true miracle of life. Adonai ro'i lo efsar, mina desha yarbi tseni, ameman chogina chaleni. Please join me now in the familiar words of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters, and restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord. Amen. The Baal Shem Tov, the Hasidic Rebbe, observed there are three ways we mourn. The first is with tears, the second is with silence, and the third is with song. When we mourn someone truly beloved, we experience all three. Tears at first, then silence, our grief settles more deeply. And finally, song as we're able to celebrate the memories we hold deep in our hearts. Today may be a time for tears as we say our final goodbyes to Renee. We'll each remember Renee in our own way. Daryl and Greg, Laura and Larry. You will remember Renee as your loving mother. Nate and Sari, Andrew and Ryan, Grace and Hank, Philip and Jess and Jacqueline will all remember Renee as their devoted grandmother. And Renee was an adoring great-grandmother to AJ and Harrison. Throughout her life, Renee was a beloved wife to Alex, and a caring sister and sister-in-law to Maureen and Clyde, a dear aunt to her nieces and nephews, and a loving cousin to many. Renee was born here in Cleveland to Nate and Lillian Galen on December 15, 1928. The family lived in Elyria for a short while, then moved back to the east side to be closer to all the aunts and uncles. Renee went to Glenville High School and enjoyed having a close-knit family in the neighborhood. Renee attended Miami University for a few years and then worked at White Motors. After the boss made an anti-Semitic comment at a holiday party, not realizing that Renee was Jewish, she called her father in tears and left there and went to work as executive assistant to Rabbi Hillel Silver. Renee was set up with Al on a blind date. He was 17 years older than her. She wasn't sure at first, but he was so taken with her, he wouldn't let her alone. She would go out with other guys and come home and find him watching TV with her father, enjoying the nuts and chocolate Al brought over for him. Al knew how to win Renee over. They were such a loving and happy couple. Al was crazy about Renee. He called her precious. And when she served him a delicious dinner, he would kiss her and say she had golden hands. They truly shared a remarkable bond and had a beautiful life together. Daryl and Laura, think back past your mom's illness. And they think of these years, these happy years, and appreciate the wonderful childhood they shared with such loving parents. When the girls were young, all their friends liked to come over because they adored their parents. Renee was interested and cared about her friends, and their girlfriends all knew it. When Laura became a mother herself, she respected the fact that her mother always had interests of her own. Renee loved to play tennis and was rather competitive. In canasta, she was a voracious reader, including the newspaper cover to cover every day, and she took art and sculpting classes. Renee even worked at Saks for a short time when they just opened. It was around the time Daryl was getting married, and Renee wanted to get the clothing discount. Renee taught her daughters to have lives of their own, but Renee was always there for them and reminded them she was their best friend. Somehow, they amazed them. Renee managed to do it all. Renee kept up on current events. She had strong opinions. Renee had a funny, dry sense of humor, and she liked to laugh. She used to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day until 40 years ago, and she quit cold turkey and never went back. Renee loved fashion, and she was always dressed beautifully. When the girls started working, they had to run their outfits by her. As Daryl said, Renee never met a pump or a handbag she didn't like. Renee was extremely proud of Laura's career as an interior designer. Laura believed it was her mother who sparked her interest in beautiful homes and decorating her home many times over. Renee was also an excellent cook. She was famous for her brisket and chocolate cake and kuchen. She would make mini ones in small pans for the girls so they could taste it before the company arrived. Laura also remembers how her mother would make them ice cream sundaes and hide surprise candies in the centers. Renee adored her sons-in-law. She was thrilled in her daughter's choice of husbands, became very close with their families. She even fainted the first time she met the Levins. Renee was so happy when the grandchildren came along. She actually went to Pittsburgh for Nate's due day and waited there for 3 weeks until he finally arrived. Philip has fond memories of Renee walking down the aisle at his wedding to Jess, or his grandmother throwing him into the pool at the village, joking she was throwing him into the garbage. All the grandchildren remember their grandmother's dish of Hershey's Nuggets on the piano and the funfetti cake she made for all occasions. Renee had nerve damage in her legs at 60 years old, but she never complained. She found her independence in her car, and she would drive over to the kids' homes and visit in the car, or drive them wherever they needed, and she always brought treats to the dogs. She attended their band concerts, plays, hockey games. Renee figured out how to park by the tennis courts for Andrew's matches and the track for Philip's needs. When any of them were sick, Renee was there with a fast food run from Wendy's or a Buster Bar. On a cruise, Andrew was her best roommate. Sunday night dinners were special times, usually with Larry's parents, her close friends, and the cousins on both sides. She was a grandmother to all. And when you went out to dinner, you will remember, soup was never hot enough for Renee. She always sent it back. And in Alexander, she asked for the end of the meat, cooked well like shoe leather. Renee was always there for her grandchildren and did whatever she could for you. Renee was like another parent. She saw the world simply, and everything was about family. Renee was a people person. She had the ability to make everyone she met feel special. Renee had many long-term, dear, and cherished friends. Daryl and Laura want to express their thanks to Betty, Renee's devoted caregiver for many years. Betty gave Renee wonderful, compassionate care and became a friend to her and to the whole family. Renee was happiest when surrounded by her large extended family for holidays and all kinds of occasions. Renee lived longer than anyone before her in the family. You were all lucky to have her in your lives for the last 93 years. So today may be a time for tears, because we're saddened by the loss of Renee. But we learn much from her, especially how to care for one another. Let these tears serve to strengthen and uphold you as a family. There's a story in our tradition about a rabbi who once passed an old woman planting trees. Woman, he called, why are you planting those trees? You'll never live to see them blossom. But the woman replied, my ancestors planted trees not for themselves but for us, that we might enjoy their shade and their fruit. I too do the same for all those who come after me. Renee planted an orchard for each one of us, an orchard filled with devotion and with love, and these will always be here for us. We must be grateful that we're able to share Renee's life. Tomorrow there'll be fewer tears, more silence. As the Baal Shem Tov noted, it will be a time for pondering, for contemplation. Renee will become a greater part of our characters and our beings as we integrate the memories and the values she taught us into our own selves. But finally, will come a time for song. The time will come when we can celebrate Renee and recall all that we learned from her and how she touched each of our lives. May she rest in peace. Zecher Tzidaka Livracha. May the memory of Renee Muriel Kurland be a blessing. And let us say Amen. And now I'd like to invite Grace to come forward to share some personal words about her grandmother.
Thanks all for being here. It means so much to us. And try to keep it under control. My brothers and I were luckier than most to have Renee as our grandmother. On behalf of all of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, I wanted to share a few words. Renee served as an example for us in so many ways, and I believe that we each carry a bit with her with us. She taught us what it means to have self-respect, be self-assured, and not take crap from anyone. She taught us about self-deprecating humor and sarcasm. She taught us that soup can't be too hot, and that it's always a good time to get a big bucket of Kenny Kings, even though it hadn't been called Kenny Kings in about 20 years. We had that show up in the driveway on a Wednesday evening, schlep us to her errands and our doctor's appointments, Chinese on Sundays kind of love with our grandma. She was more than a loving presence. Got this. She was more than a loving presence. She was our caretaker, our friend, and a large part of a support system that allowed us all to thrive as children and now adults. Although my grandma used a walker through most of our lives, it didn't stop her from coming to every one of her grandkids' important events, band concerts, tennis matches, yada yada. You name it, she was there 25 minutes early. And she wasn't just there for the fun stuff. For example, Grandma was there for all of the ups and downs of our collective angsty preteen phases. One particular occasion I ran away from home and Grandma picked me up in her silver Buick LeSabre and took me back to her house where we probably snacked on diet popsicles and black olives, and she told me to just forget it. She hated it when my mom and I argued, but she always made me feel heard, and even though she didn't want my mom to know, she usually took my side. In my early 20s, I had a series of bad breakups, as one does. There was no comfort like laying in my grandma's bed while she talked about what a schmuck so-and-so was, and how I should never settle for anyone who didn't treat me like a queen, like her dear Al treated her. Her mantra to all of us was, remember, he needs to like you just a teensy bit more than you like him. Maybe one of the greatest intergenerational gifts we could have received was knowing and watching Renee and Al's love story. Though 17 years apart in age, they were always in step. Al worshipped Renee, he called her his peanut, and he kissed her hands after she made him a delicious meal. They were the picture of support and love, and gave our entire family a strong example to aspire to. We'll know that we're carrying her with us when we insist that our guests eat more and take a doggy bag home, when we crack a sarcastic joke that cracks only ourselves up, when we warn our kids about the dangers of diving into a pool, and when we realize we've been chatting so vigorously that breathing simply wasn't necessary. We love you, Grandma.
Thank you for your beautiful, heartfelt words. Birth is a beginning and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage. From childhood to maturity and youth to age. From innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing. From foolishness to discretion, then perhaps to wisdom. From weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage stage by stage to life everlasting. Amen. If you're able, please rise now for El Malay Rachamim. El Malay Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachach Nefei Hashkina, Im Kedoshim Tehorim, Kezoar Harakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat, Rivka Bat Naftali Beliba, Shalacha Laolama, Bal Harachamim, Yasirechu Beseter Kenefav Laolamim, Veyitzra Chachayim at Nishmata, Naiku Nachalata, V'tanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkava B'Nomar. Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our beloved Renee Muriel Kurland, known in our tradition as Rivka, Bat, daughter of Naftali Beliba, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen. We'll pause for a moment as we lower the coffin. When our time has come, the leaf falls from the bough when its day is done. The deeds of the righteous enriches souls, the fallen leaf enriches the soil beneath. The dust returns to the earth, but the spirit lives on with God. Like the stars by day, our beloved dead are not seen by mortal eyes. They shine on forever. Theirs is eternal peace. Let us be thankful for the companion who continues in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening of buds and the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us, and as we remember. Now our tradition to place some earth on the coffin is the last act of devotion we can show to Renee. See the first hands that covered up the coffin, she has a loving family. Everybody's immediate family come up first, and then the friends can join. Recite the Kaddish, and anyone else who'd like to come forward, you can place earth on after we're done. Now we'll recite the Kaddish on your cards. Please join me. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, B'Amad Yivrach Yerutei, B'Amlich Malchutei, B'Chayechon Uvyomechon, U'Chayei Rachol Beit Yisrael, B'Gala U'Bizman Kari B'Yimru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mivarach Leolam Ulamei Amaya. Yit Barach, V'Yishtabach, V'Yit Pa'ar, V'Yit Roman, V'Yit Naseh, V'Yit Hadar, V'Yit Alel, V'Yit Halal, Shemei Dekudasha, Barichu, Leila, Minkol, Birchata, V'Shirata, Tushbechata, V'Nechamata, Damiran B'Yama, V'Yimru, Amen. Yehei Shlama, Rabba, Min Shemaya, V'Chayim Aleinu, V'Yakol Yisrael, V'Yimru, Amen. O say shalom b'romav, huya say shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all bereaved among us. Let us all say amen. Lech kishlach Adonai, go your way, for God has called you. Lech v'anai yemach, go your way, and may God be with you. V'halach lefanecha sikecha kavod Adonai yaspecha. May your righteousness go before you. May the memory of your life very present in the hearts and minds of all those who have known you and loved you. And may the glory of God receive you. Amen. This concludes our service. The family receiving visitors for Shiva at the Freeman Residence, 28051 Cambridge Lane and Pepper Pike, tonight and tomorrow night from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Thank you.
We're going to ask you to form a passage and let the family pass through you.